The only book Dostoevsky was allowed in prison was a battered New Testament like Sonia's. And the only evidence of humility he found in the prisoners lay in the traditional Christianity still alive among them. This made a deep impression on him, and in Crime and Punishment, he began a long struggle with himself about the existence of God.
When Dostoevsky died in 1881, he'd given us The Idiot, The Possessed, and The Brothers Karamazov, as well as Crime and Punishment. He'd also become engaged in a running battle against the complacent bourgeois spirit of Europe and all Western-inspired ideas of the ordering of society, both capitalist and socialist. Against these, he promoted a mystical Russian idea of brotherhood, togetherness, founded on the sublime Christian virtues of love and self-sacrifice.
Accept suffering, Sonia says to Raskolnikov. Accept suffering and be redeemed by it. We're touching something crucial here in Dostoevsky's fiction, the redemptive power of suffering. And those who don't like Dostoevsky often say, what's so good about suffering? Suffering lures, suffering destroys. And indeed, they have only to point to any of the big books to say that from crust to core, they're saturated in suffering. Well, Dostoevsky thought that suffering and love are intertwined in our human solidarity. Suffering because we are all guilty in relation to each other. We're all the time inflicting suffering, harm on each other. And our unity in love is the obverse of our guilt in suffering. Sonia thought this. Sonia reads the New Testament to Raskolnikov. Sonia sends him out to confess. He kisses the filthy earth. He accepts suffering. Sonia and love broke him, wrote Dostoevsky in his notebooks. Raskolnikov has proved himself weak in his attempt to stand alone. He's exiled himself from his own humanity. Only through confession and accepting the consequences of that confession can he find his way back to himself and rejoin the human family.
It was I who killed the old woman moneylender and her sister Lizaveta with an axe and robbed them.
It has taken Raskolnikov hundreds of pages to find these simple words of confession. Pages written, remember, in 1866, the middle of Queen Victoria's reign. And yet the pages of the novel, challenge Victorian assumptions to the very root. They prefigure the condition in which we find ourselves. The external conditions of urban decay, squalor, false neighborhood, crowding but no neighbors, interior calamities of narcissism, of despair, of the deep, deep radical boredom, of aggression, senseless violence. Indeed, you can sometimes switch, or you feel you can switch aggression and boredom. as if they were interchangeable. And all this delivered with unremitting stress, the stress of great art. I think it's a touch of Dostoevsky's genius at its most piercing that the punishment of the murderer should begin on the very first page of the novel with his first promptings towards the murder. His punishment in everything except its public aspect. Equally the purest Dostoevsky, the paradox that the regeneration of the criminal begins with that public punishment. In a word, the house of the dead is the place of birth.
It was love that brought them back to life. The heart of one held inexhaustible sources of life for the heart of the other. And what did all the torments of the past amount to now? Life had taken the place of dialectics.
We're so unused to living. We often feel something like loathing for real life. And we're all agreed it's better in books. So what is it we scratch about for? What do we cry for? What do we beg for? We don't know ourselves. And it would be worse for us if our stupid whims were indulged. Oh, loosen our chains and I assure you we would all immediately beg to be put back under discipline. Oh, I can see you're angry with me. You're only talking about yourself and your underground misery. Don't dare speak of all of us. Excuse me, gentlemen, I've only carried to a logical conclusion in my life what you didn't dare take more than halfway. And you called your cowardice common sense. You comforted yourselves with a self-deception. So, perhaps I turn out to be more alive than you. Look harder. After all, we don't even know where real life is lived nowadays, or what it is. We don't know whose side to be on, where to give our allegiance, what to love, what to hate, what to respect, or what to despise. We even find it difficult to be real human beings with flesh and blood of our own. We're ashamed of it. We're always striving to be some unprecedented kind of generalized human being. We're born dead. We've long ceased to be the sons of living fathers. We've become more and more contented with our condition. We've acquired a taste for it. Soon we shall invent a method of being born from an idea. But that's enough. I'll say no more from the underground.